So today we're going to be talking about multiplying binomials together. So remember, a binomial is something with two terms. We're going to take something with two terms and times it by something else with two terms. So binomial times a binomial. We're going to do so using multiple methods. We actually have three different methods. Two are very similar though. And we're going to for sure use a distributive method today. Now to begin, we have a warm-up here. We want to simplify and put our answer in standard form. And so go ahead, pause the video, and see if you can recall how to complete the warm-up. So looking at the warm-up, I first went ahead and distributed everything outside the parentheses into them. And then I went and combined like terms, and I got negative 24x to the fourth plus 5x cubed minus x squared plus 5x plus 6 for my final answer. And also notice it goes in standard form. My exponents are dropping until I end with just my constant. Here's a couple more warm-ups to get you ready for what today is going to bring. So first we want to distribute. So we've been doing distributive property quite a bit lately. We're going to distribute what's outside to what's inside. And then we're going to factor on the next problem. So remember, you're going to look for your GCF, or your greatest common factor. So pause the video, go ahead and solve, come back and check your answers. So looking at the one where we distributed, not only do you have to multiply your numbers, but you also have to add exponents on like variables. And so we end up with negative 10x cubed y plus 2x squared y cubed minus 40x squared y for our final answer. There are no like terms to combine, and we're not going to worry about standard form too much with this problem because of our exponents. Anyways, with factoring, we need to look at our three values. So we have three terms, 15x squared, negative 20x, and a 35. And we need to figure out what they all have in common. Now, a common error I see with this one is people want to pull out a 5x. However, we can't do that because if we look at this last term, a 35, there is no x to pull out. And so our GCF can just be 5. It can't be 5x, it's just 5. And so when we divide each term by 5, we have a 5 outside for our GCF, and then we have our leftovers in parentheses. That's 3x squared minus 4x and plus 7. Now going into today's material, we have a couple vocabulary words. Our first is multiplying binomials. It's not even vocabulary, it's a process. What you do is you multiply each term in the first binomial by each term in the second binomial. We know what binomials are, we know what terms are, but that sounds a little complicated. However, it's really just distributive property. So there's not too much new stuff, it's just expanding what we already know. It makes a lot more sense when you see it in use. Our next thing we're going to talk about is FOIL. FOIL is the fancy term of multiplying binomials that we use as we go through math. And it stands for first, outside, inside, last. And when we apply that today, it's going to make a lot more sense, like vocabulary usually does. But we need to know what FOIL stands for because you're going to hear the word FOIL quite a bit as you go through math in the future from here on out. Now, we have this problem. 2x minus 1 times x minus 5. Notice it's a binomial times a binomial. Now what we need to do is we need to figure out how to simplify. So what you need to do is you need to multiply each term in the first binomial, just like it says, by each term in the second binomial. So what I like to do is I like to highlight my terms. So in my first binomial, I like to highlight the two different terms I'm working with. I have a 2x and I have a negative 1. Now what I need to do is I need to multiply my 2x and I need to distribute it. Let's use actually green because it's in green. I need to distribute it to each term in that second binomial. So I take 2x times x, which is 2x squared, and I take 2x times negative 5, which is negative 10x. That's just distributive property. It's nothing new. And now the only thing is we need to do it again with our -1. We need to distribute it to each term in that other binomial. So we're going to take -1 times x, which is a -1x, and -1 times -5, which is +5. We just multiplied binomials. How cool is that? Now the only thing we need to do is we need to simplify it. I see like terms right here in the middle. I'm going to combine them together. So I'm going to have that 2x squared, a -11x, and a +5. Right there is my final answer. So that method that we just talked about was distributive property. And that's how we're going to solve both of these. So I'm going to once again highlight my terms. So I have a 2x squared and I have a +3. And now I'm going to distribute my 2x squared into the other binomial. In doing so, I get a 10x cubed minus 4x squared. Now I took care of that, so I need to take the second term and I need to distribute it to that second binomial. And I get a +15x and a -6. Looking at this problem, I have no like terms. It's in standard form, and that's my final answer. So pause the video, try the next one on your own using the same method, come back and check your answer. Your final answer, once simplified and in standard form, should be 8x squared plus 8x minus 6. Our next method we're going to use is the table method. So if you are a more visual learner, this is going to be your way. Okay? When we set up our table, we're going to X out this first box. So the top corner, we're going to black it out because we're not going to use that. What we do is the terms of the first binomial go across the top. My terms are 4x and +4. The terms of the second binomial go down the side. 2x and a -6. From here, we're going to multiply to get their matching boxes. So in this first box, right here, we would have a 2x times 4x, which is 8x squared. Below that, we would have 4x times -6, which is -24x. Going back up to the top row, we would have 2x times 4, which is 8x. And then in the bottom corner, 4 times -6 is -24. Notice we multiplied all our terms. Next, what I like to do is I like to write them in standard form. I take each of my purple terms and put them in standard form in a line. 8x squared plus 8x minus 24x minus 24. By putting it in order in standard form in a row, I can see I have some like terms to combine. I need to combine my x's. In doing so, I still have an 8x squared. I get a -16x and a -24. Right there is my final answer. Notice, by using distributive property like we did in the last slide, this right here is where you would start. The table method adds in an extra step. However, if it makes it make more sense, it's so essential that you draw the table then. So, just like last slide, go ahead and try this next problem on your own. Remember, we black out the top corner, and go ahead, complete your table, and find your answer. So I went ahead, put in my terms in my table, filled out my table, wrote it as a row, and combined like terms, and I ended up with -7x squared plus 17x plus 12 for my final answer. The last method we're going to use today is the FOIL method. And remember, FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last, which I have written in the middle. Now, the thing about FOIL is it's just a fancy acronym to do the distributive property. First means you're going to take the first term in each binomial and multiply them together. So x times 4x gets us that 4x squared. That's how we started distributive property. O stands for outside. You're going to take the far outside terms of your binomials and multiply them together. So that would mean x times 3, which gives us a 3x. I stands for inside. You're going to take your inside terms of those binomials, the ones next to each other, and multiply them. That would give us a negative 12x. And L stands for last. You're going to take the last term of each binomial and multiply it together to get a negative 9. Notice it's exactly how we do the distributive property. It just is the fancy acronym of FOIL to help you remember. Combine like terms from here, 4x squared minus 9x minus 9 for our final answer. Pause the video, give the next one a try on your own. When you FOIL or distribute, same process, you end up with 4x squared plus 2x minus 1. Notice our 2x minus 2x cancel, and our final answer is just 4x squared minus 1. This actually is a special case binomial, which we're going to talk more about tomorrow.